Hi, everybody. Here I am again. Welcome to Real Stories of Hurting Moms. We're trying to fool around with the Wi-Fi. We might have a little issue with it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm glad to be here with you tonight. Let me know where you're watching from, whatever state, or if you're in Canada or another country. What country are you watching from? We love to see where moms are tuning in from. And then also, I would like to know, is this your first time? Is this the first time you've watched our broadcast, or are you a many-time viewer? Let me know about that. I am so excited. I'm in Prescott, Arizona. I flew over here with my sister last night to visit with we've coming to visit our parents. And so we're just had a really lazy day and enjoyed time together and catching up and just hanging out. So I'm coming to you from my mom and dad's house. And some of you remember at Christmas time, we did a watch party and we watched some old videos that I had done a while back. And my mom was in one of them with me. And we had such a huge, everybody loved it. We had such a huge response. Everybody was so grateful and loved seeing her. So I'm excited because she's going to be here with me in just a minute. And so she's going to share again. And then also we have my sister Beth is here. And my dad is going to pop in and make a little appearance towards the end of the video. But I want to talk to you just a little bit about what we're going to kind of talk about tonight is praying for our kids. And I've had moms tell me that they don't even know what to say. They don't even know how to pray for their child. And I can so remember that. And even now, I go through times like that where it's like, I don't have the words. I feel like sometimes I'm praying over and over and over again for the same things and nothing's happening, and it's so difficult, and you finally just get where you don't have the words anymore. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to ask God for. And I'd love to hear from some of you about that as we're talking tonight. Maybe you can share, and some of the moms that are watching, and even for myself, share with us some of the ways that you've prayed for your child. What are some of the things that you've talked to God about regarding your child? As we always talk about, there isn't any pain like this. I mean, we don't even know how to express the pain that we're in when we have a child that's making bad choices, who is estranged from us. I know so many of you have told me that your kids they've just turned their back on you. They've turned and they don't want anything to do with you. They've cut you off, blocked you on their phones, and that's so painful. We also have those of you whose kids, for whatever reason that your heart is breaking over a child. I always say that the situations vary, but the pain is the same. There's something about that mother's heart as we struggle and hurt and suffer along with our kids, whatever they're doing, and we worry about them. And how about anxiety? Anxiety is one of the hugest, I think if anybody asked me which emotions do I remember the most? What emotion struck me the most, was the most painful? It was the anxiety. It was trying to, I don't know, that feeling in your stomach when you can't sleep at night and you wake up with it and it's just always there. So difficult. So I'd love to hear from some of you. What are some emotions that you're going through? What are some emotions that you've been through? And so the purpose of this Facebook Live is for us to be able to be in community, to talk back and forth with each other, for you to recognize that you're not alone. We can encourage each other. And that's what the whole purpose of doing the Facebook Live is. Now, I do want to tell you, I always have to remind you, we have Hurting Mom support groups. And the groups are 10 weeks, and we go through a workbook. And this is where you gain the tools that you need to help you move beyond the pain, to help you take your life back. I mean, how many of us have just completely been consumed with our child and what they're doing or not doing? And so this group, when you're in the group and you go through a process where you're going to gain tools to be able to start living your own life again. And so I just want to encourage you, if you've not been through a group, you're not sure what that's about, please go to our website. There should be a link above the video later on, and it'll take you to a place where it'll tell you about the groups, and you have an opportunity to sign up. If there's not a group in your area, we have online groups, and they're amazing. You'd be in a group with moms from all over the U.S. and Canada, and I never thought I was going to like online groups, but it's so amazing to be able to be in those groups and to get to know moms from everywhere. When I lean forward like this, I'm just looking at your comments. I have to scroll down to see them. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to my mom and my sister now and have them come out, and so you can meet them. So come on out. They're in the kitchen. You're sitting on this side?
Yes.
So this is my mom, Ruthie. This is her house, and this is my sister, Beth. And Beth is my younger sister. I'll say it so you don't have to say.
Much younger.
So you guys have to get in close. Okay. So we we all know what this pain is. And Mom, if you've read my autobiography, you know my story, you know about my parents, you know the hurt that I caused them, and you know just the influence that they've had in my life. So what do you have to say?
Well, we're talking about prayer, right?
Yeah.
I can remember so well when we were going through our heartache with Cathy that I couldn't pray. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't have the words to express myself. And so finally I realized that all I had to do was sigh and say, Lord, you know my heart. You know her heart. I'm going to cry.
It's okay. I'm okay now.
Yeah. Thank the Lord. Anyhow, you don't have to put it into words. God knows what's in your heart. And I just would lift her up into his embrace and leave her there and say, you take care of her and take care of me. And don't let this last forever.
Yeah. And that's kind of what this is about. I mean, it's really about us. Hurting moms you're not going to learn how to fix your kid. Because you can't do that. But you are going to learn how to pray and how to lose that anxiety. How about you? What words of wisdom do you have?
Well, I think just in hearing what my mom had to say from a different angle on it, and I have some of the prayer angles for my own children that have been through some things, but this reminds me of the fact that I'm 7 years younger than Cathy, so when she was going through her things, I was still living at home. I was still there. Cathy was married first at 18, so I was 11 years old and still in the home. And Cathy was beginning to go through things, and I observed and watched the pain that my mom experienced. And I have to say, she did not abandon me in her pain, but I saw it and I was grateful for it. But as a reminder that there were a couple of times when I got scared about her pain and watching her stress and her anxiety. And so I think from that standpoint, some of my words of thought or wisdom would be for those of you who have children at home that are not going through the hardships, focus on them as well and try to remind yourself of them and where you are in your journey with them. And love them and care for them and remind them that they are loved in the midst of what the kids aren't dumb. They know when mommy's happy and they know when mommy's going through something. So even if you feel sometimes like you're projecting joy, they know. And so do your best to explain what you can, but don't leave them in the wake of really what you're trying to deal with. I think that's really important to remember. They still have they're still growing up and need a strong mom. And so it's hard to balance both, I think.
Well, and I think, there's so many, it isn't just our other kids. It's like a lot of times we're so consumed with this child that's hurting us and so consumed with trying to fix them and trying to figure out where they are and all the different things and the hurt and the pain that we're going through that we kind of isolate and miss out on all of our relationships. Sometimes it's the spouse, sometimes it's our friends or our other family members or, and so I think, so many moms talk to me about the fact that they isolate because we have a lot of shame. There's shame involved in this. We feel like, we're the only one and we don't. I want to tell you, this is one of the reasons, part of the main reason for the whole Hurting Moms thing is about community. And I was sharing that earlier with my mom, my sister, that it's so important to be in community, be in a place where you can share your deepest pain and talk about it. Because you talked a lot of times about how you didn't have that when I was growing up.
No, and of course I was married to the preacher and we never had experienced anything like this. And so I've learned so much. If I could do it over again, I could do it so differently. But I want to say, Kathy, as I'm sitting here, I never really gave up hope. I just needed so badly for her to be the person that she was when she was younger. And it happened. She's better than she's ever been.
30 years later.
30 years later, yeah.
It took a while, but the blessings that have come since then have just been huge.
I think, God uses all of it some way if we allow him to.
That's
He
true.
can always use. He doesn't make these things happen. He's given us free choice. He's given our kids free choice. But he can bring good out of it if we allow him to, and if we look for a way to do that. And I think so much of so much of this whole thing is just about that, trusting him. Hi, Sarah. See, Sarah, I'm not commenting on your comments. Sherry Ann from West Virginia, and this isn't scrolling up by itself tonight. There's Sarah, says my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Debbie, you're right, grandkids too. How many of us are hurting over grandkids? I know some of you are hurting over your grandkids. I know a lot of these moms tell me that they're raising their grandkids.
I know.
They're raising them, or their child has estranged themselves from the family and they don't get to see their grandkids.
Yes,
They've
that would be
taken
very
them
hard.
away.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's also the fact that sometimes our grandkids are the ones that go off,
Right.
go off kilter. And I mean,
And then as a grandparent, you're not only hurting for your grandchild, you're hurting for your child
Yeah.
who is mothering and that child. So
I remember saying to my daughter when I was in the depth of being a hurting mom, in the deep of it, thick of it, I remember saying, you know what? I hope one day you get one just like you. I hope you have to experience what I'm going through. And then she grew up and she had a baby girl. And I was like, I take that back. I don't, because I love that baby. I still love her. She's almost 16 today. But I was like, oh my gosh, you don't realize when there's grandchildren, you don't know how you're going to feel about your grandchildren until you have them. There's something very special.
nothing like it. That's
Very
for sure.
special about that.
One thing I wanted to add a little bit, just kind of last time that I had the privilege of being here with my mom and my sister, we came in from the angle that I have a child that's on the autism spectrum. And so as a hurting mom, I'm dealing with a child. He's 32 years old. He lives with us and he's high functioning, but he's getting ready for the first time in his life to live on his own. And so prayer is a huge thing for me right now, praying to know how to know that God is in control of whether he should branch out on his own or not, the avenues that are going to be slippery, the slippery slopes that he's going to deal with. And so if any of you are in that situation too, where you have children with spectrum issues, autism, some physical handicaps, mental handicaps, that prayer is something that you never cease with, that God continues to give you the strength to be a support for them. But again, also to find your own joy and your own strength and your own happiness to be able to continue on with your life, regardless of the avenues they choose or the obstacles they face.
And I think the only way to do that, when we talk about going on with our lives, or being able to have joy in our lives or peace in our lives, I don't know how to do that without Jesus. I think it all has to do with trusting him and allowing him. It's his peace that I would always tap into. I couldn't find any peace on my own. I was in constant turmoil, and I know you were too. But it was tapping into his peace, and he will give it to us when we seek it.
I see, Terry, you have spoken about being a preacher's wife and you weren't allowed to be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had had something like this, Hurting Moms, where I could get into a group, even online. It would be so wonderful if I could have shared. I did share with a few close friends, but it wouldn't be the same. They weren't going through what I was going through, so they couldn't really give me the support I needed. But if I'd had something like this, it would have been such an enabling thing for me to
It would have changed
succeed.
everything.
I think it
And
would have.
actually, Terry, hi Terry. Terry was in one of the online groups
Oh,
that I
is that
met. She's
right?
been in it, but I remember at the time she's a preacher's wife, and she
Yeah.
had nowhere to go with it.
Yeah.
That's one of the great things, by the way, about being in an online group. The chances of you running into anybody you know there very slim.
Yeah.
I mean, the moms come from all over the U.S. and Canada, and it's really easy to do. It's not hard at all to get into an online group, but it's I don't think you'll regret it. Terry, I know you've indicated to me before how much it meant to you to be in there. So
Yeah.
it's fun to see you on here tonight. I see Renee. Renee, good to see you on here. Renee is in Kentucky, and I got to meet Renee at Thanksgiving time. I was in Tennessee, and we drove partway and met with her, and Renee is like a state representative down there. She's helping all kinds of other groups get started in Kentucky, and her church is incredibly supportive of hurting moms and of the whole program. And so I love that woman. It's good to see you on here, Renee. I'm trying to scroll. When I'm leaning forward, I'm scrolling down here. Here's somebody whose son has schizophrenia.
Mhm.
So she's in drug addiction. Yeah, dual diagnosis is a huge thing. The mental health, when mental health issues come up and then they try to self-medicate and then they become addicts on top of that, it's so difficult and so painful. Terry said it made a huge difference being in the group. Shanna was in one of my groups. It's fun. I'm looking at all your, and Carol is one of our leaders, and Marietta's a leader in Canada. So good to see you all on here. I get, it's so funny because most of these women I've never met in person. I've never met them. I've never gotten to hug them. That's the hard part about online groups. Never gotten to hug them. But honestly, I feel like I know them all so well. I mean, I know their faces. Because of technology, because we get to meet in rooms and see each other and hear each other, and so I just feel like I have. And again, that is the importance of community, of being in community. This whole thing, Hurting Moms, one of our main visions and part of our mission statement is the idea of community, of being together in community, because there's nothing like it. I was going to say too, as we're talking about prayer, one of the sessions in the book when we go through the 10 weeks is on prayer, on praying for our child. And one of the things that I learned how to do, and it's in the book and there's examples of it, is to pray scripture, pray through scripture. Mm-hmm. You can find a verse that maybe talks about some, and insert your child's name. Insert your child's name in there as you're praying. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a new way. It gives you new words. And there's, scripture is so powerful. Yeah. It's so powerful. And so I want to encourage you and really challenge you, moms, to get your Bibles out and find some scripture verses that resonate with you and that you feel like you can apply to your child. When in that, we have a theme verse for every session, and that one is in Samuel's mom, Hannah, praying for him. She says, I prayed for this child, you granted me this child, and now I give him to you. I give him to the Lord. And that's what this is all about, really, is surrendering.
What a wonderful pattern for us all to follow when we can't do it on our own. To take a prayer like that and put our own child's name in. What a comfort that is.
Yeah, you'll have to read it later on. You guys will need to read the comments and go ahead and answer. Here, Sherry's talking about working. She works with autism spectrum children. So we'll read these, and you can
definitely. My eyes aren't good enough to see it from where I'm sitting.
The computer. We're at a
and I'm the young
computer.
one. I'm a young one, and I can't read.
We have glasses on.
I have contacts.
So there's Kristen. Kristen's joined. Hi, Kristen.
One thing I wanted to say too, and I had mentioned it earlier, in terms of prayer too, is one thing I learned in a Bible study years and years ago was about praying for our children or those that would come into our children's lives at some point. For my example was I was told, pray for whoever's going to marry your son who's now 14 years old. Pray for whoever that is. Because she's probably alive and she's probably out there somewhere and you don't know her family situation. And mine was a really weird, off the wall situation, because I laughed at the time in the Bible study and said, well, can I pray specifically? Because I know a little girl that's in church with him, and fast forward, he's married to that little girl for 13 years now and has my 2 grandchildren. So that was pretty bizarre.
I forgot about that. That's it. You prayed
I prayed specifically for her. So, but the point is, that doesn't always work. But I have learned through that process, and I'm doing it with my grandchildren. I pray for my grandchildren now, that who they come in contact with at school, the teachers that are in their lives, the counselors that are in their lives, that God would be so present with them and protect them and fill them with what they're learning at home, but also just what they're going to encounter in life, because there's so much ugliness out there. The world is a broken world, and they're going to be part of that, and they're going to have their ups and downs.
Right.
But the continued prayer on a daily basis for the unknown, because God knows. Yeah. So praying for the unknown with your children and who comes into their lives, I think.
And also, Beth, even as our children have left us emotionally and physically, to pray that someone can reach them, because we can't.
Yes.
But someone else could come into their life. And a lot of times you read about how that changes people.
Yeah.
They won't hear it from us, but they'll hear it from someone else.
I prayed that. I still pray that. I pray that
all the time.
That people will come into their lives. Because, we talk all the time, we hear about planting seeds.
Right.
And even that's what we try to plant seeds, but we know a lot of times we're not the one to see the fruit, but we plant seeds, and then we pray someone else comes along and waters the seeds. And that's another way to pray for our kids. Absolutely.
That brings me back to the fact that we planted some pretty good seeds when you were a little girl, because even though you fell out of the tree, you did find your way back. And I'm so grateful for that. God has so blessed us.
And I think for some of those of you too that have my one story of really a hurting mom more than anything is one of my other sons, who's my youngest, who was just a great kid always, a scholared college athlete. And his senior year in college, he made some really bad choices, and about blew his career and his life. And I remember calling my sister and saying, Cathy, I think I'm a hurting mom. Yeah. I get it. I get it now. She had never been before. I understood it because my nieces and nephews and my sister, I'm in their lives, but it was hitting me pretty hard, differently than my other son I mentioned on the spectrum. But this was a kid who, there's no way I thought he would ever make a mistake. He was the one that was, of all my kids, really got it together and knows the Lord. And so that was quite an ordeal. And he has been able to come through that and come around. But man, there was a lot of prayer and a lot of pastors that were able to come alongside of us, a mentoring family that was able to come alongside of us, who was also in the baseball world. We were baseball parents, and they're Christians. And so the point with all of that too is to open yourself up, like with these groups. You've got to be in community about this. If I had to deal with that, not only would I have not survived, I'm not sure our son would have survived.
I was just going to say that, because the thing that was different, so many times when we go through what you went through, a lot of moms, they just don't tell anybody because they're ashamed, they feel guilty, they've done something wrong, and they don't tell anybody, and so it just eats you up. But you immediately reached out. I'll never forget that morning you called me, and I was already at church working, and you called me, and I remember when you said that, you said, I think I'm a mom. but you reached out right away, and you reached out to other people,
pastors and another couple. Like I said, it was huge. Not only, like I said, did it help us, but that gave us support to know how at that early stage to support our child, and how we needed to behave with him, and how we needed to interact with him when he was letting us. So it was really, really good.
Yeah, that is. That's right. That's a huge part of it. And that's, again, I keep going back to the community thing. You see Brian's watching?
No, where?
Oh.
Is that my nephew?
Yeah, Brian's watching.
Hi, Brian.
All right, there he is. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
He watches almost every week. Brian is my son. And it's fun to see my kids popping in and out of here. I don't think they stay the whole time.
No, she has 15 children. So.
Almost. Read the book. Read the book. If you read the book, you'll find out all about
There's always one of them somewhere
blended families, and I've raised 8 kids. So there's not quite 15.
No, I'm just kidding.
Getting close. Anyway, but I love this whole thing, the whole thing as we're talking here about just about prayer and the whole deal. I want to, though, now, we only have a few more minutes. The time goes fast, doesn't it?
does.
I mean, we wait and then we think, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
Of course, with
I
us,
have plenty more I could say.
with us, the three of us, we could talk. We could be here all night.
We've already been talking 12 hours today.
Yeah, all day. But I'm going to introduce you to my dad because he's
Oh, I
coming.
see the
Here he
shadow.
comes.
Here he comes.
We had him hidden away in a corner. But I wanted to bring him on, and my daddy is he's a retired pastor. I can't tell him how old you guys are. Our parents are 91 and almost 91.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's not. You're
I
older.
always liked younger men.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we-
married
so
a
do
younger
we.
woman.
And they've been together since they were 15.
Yeah.
All right, that's not the point tonight. We're talking about prayer.
Yeah, so Dad's a pastor, and honestly, it was a talk about shame when I first kind of started going downhill, and the preacher's wife and the pastor, and what do you have to say, Dad?
Well,
about
I think basically we begin by saying that from the very beginning of Cathy's difficulties, the door was open. We always communicated to her that she was loved and welcomed, and anytime we wanted her back, we wanted her home.
Yeah.
And that message had to remain clear. However, I think my sorrow over her wanderings was compounded by watching her precious mother here weep and be depressed and feel so burdened by all of this. And so it was really a compounded sorrow that we shared. And prayer was really the only place we had to turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so my prayer was that God would hold her in his loving arms, whatever she was doing, wherever she was, that he would keep her safe in all of the troubles and trials and tribulations. And thirdly, I prayed that the Lord would bring some people into her life. She wasn't listening to us, and that others would come into her life who could communicate the love and the truth to her that would bring her around. And so at that point, then we just kind of release her.
Yes.
It didn't calm the sorrow. That continued, but we were able to release her into God's hands. And by golly, all those prayers came true.
Dad, I remember a few years ago, I guess you were cleaning out some of your stuff, and you sent me an entry. You've always been a journaler. You journal. And you sent me an entry from your journal from, it's going to make me cry, from when I was born. It was the day I was born, and you said there was an entry with the date of my birth, and you said it was like a prayer, really, that you at that moment were surrendering me to the Lord, kind of like Hannah did with Samuel, right? That you were giving me to the Lord and praying that I would grow up to be a godly woman. And it took me a long time, and I'm still working on it. But you've always been so solid in your faith, and so we always have had that to come back to. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
This is so much fun. I hope you guys are enjoying seeing my little family. We have a brother too.
Yes.
There's three of us kids. Our brother, he's in West Virginia. I saw somebody on here from West Virginia. He lives in Wellsburg, right?
Tom Brown.
Tom Brown.
He's older than me, too.
Younger than me. I'm the eldest.
You can see why we look so old. We've been burdened with our children.
I think everybody's going to agree for being in your 91 years old. You guys are amazing. You're amazing. So we're very blessed to have both our parents and to have them doing well, and we can sit and laugh.
We're blessed, and God is so good. We are so blessed.
We are. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. Again, if you have not been in a Hurting Mom support group, please go to the website and check it out. And pray about it. Pray about joining a group, because that's where you're going to really find the healing. I'll be back next Thursday at the same time. And in the meanwhile, keep talking to each other, keep coming to the Facebook page, and let's all stay in community together. We need each other. So love you all. God bless you. Take care.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Oh, great. It's not ending. Oh, there you go. Yes.